Hi, welcome to the Gateway Realty Show, information you should not be without. My name is Chirag Shah and I'm your host. I'd like to introduce you to our guest, Justin Albano. He's the owner of True View Home Inspections. Thank you for joining us, Justin.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
No problem, and let's just jump into it.
Yeah.
What's really interesting with Justin is he opened his business in 2007, right in the midst of the biggest recession we've had in decades. So Justin, share with us a little bit. What made you jump into it around that time?
Well, it wasn't really a choice to dive into it at the worst time possible, but professionally and personally, it was time for me to move on to start my own business. And I just had the confidence that I was doing the right thing by my clients. I had the confidence that I was in the right place professionally with all the training and certifications I had to be successful, no matter what the time.
So you really felt like that having a client-first approach and being able to give people the right information when buying a home, regardless of the economy, would make you successful.
Absolutely, and every small business would say that. I know you personally feel the same exact way. I mean, that's the way you become successful. Otherwise, it's not going to last long.
Yeah, I got into real estate in 2006, and we've been working together about 10 years, and I find that very interesting about you. You do care, I feel, a little more than most people do in giving people the information, and when I meet with people, we talk about all the exciting things. We're looking at the kitchen, the bathrooms, the hardwood floors.
The fun stuff.
The fun stuff, Oh, look, our kids could play in the backyard, and look at all the living space, but when you go to the house, it's something different. So, what ideally is the desired outcome of a home inspection?
Well, I mean, you're totally right. They go into it with a great feeling. This is their future home, and it is tough going into it and being the one. Okay, I have to be the one to bring some negativity to that situation. But ideally, it'd be great to just walk through the house with them, help them get to know the house rather than just list imperfections or any kind of deficiencies, and hopefully there's a home that's been well maintained and not dealing with any major issues that would scare them away from the deal or make them feel like they can't afford it or maintain it over the years that they live there.
It's something interesting you always say, and tell me a little bit more about it. You say it's the first time that they spent really a significant amount of time. You elaborate on that?
Absolutely, yeah. Often we get called and they ask if they have to be present during the inspection, and we feel like it's a necessity because, I mean, when they go visit the house, they might have an hour, they might have even a little bit more than an hour, but how often do they get to wander through the home with just us, picturing themselves in that home as a homeowner and really getting to know every nook and cranny of the home? It's something they didn't have a chance to do when they were visiting the home and when they were putting in an offer. So that's one of the reasons why being present during an inspection is so important. They get a feel of home ownership in that particular home.
And that's really, Justin, the interesting thing is by doing this with hundreds of clients, you get to see the first time you come to a house, they say you see what you want to see.
Yeah.
The second time you come to a house, you see mostly what you want to see. You might pick up things. But what I find is by the third visit, when they get to the home inspection, there are things that you start picking up on that once like the facade of the house and the excitement wears off, there's reality, and
Absolutely.
It kind of makes you think about like what are the things that you must check in a home inspection. There's major components of a house, and obviously there's a big financial stake going into this. And if we could kind of go through and roll, like what really goes through and what do you really look at,
Yeah, well, you just nailed it. I mean, you said the major components, and you're absolutely right. From your point of view, it's important for you to track the price of the house and determine, whether or not it's the type of kitchen and backyard and deck and neighborhood and number of bedrooms that they want. But it's my job to fill them in on the details of, how old is the roof and is it keeping the house dry? Is the foundation holding up over time? Is there any kind of major termite damage to the structure? What are some of the larger systems that may be breaking down in the next few years? This is important for them to know, not to scare them, but it's important for them to know to be prepared.
And I feel that the home inspection is not such like a canned process, right? Like there's different type of people, and I've found that you've always been great speaking to people through different filters. Like, the handyman that's buying a house to flip really just wants to make sure there's no big ticket items. But we could see here, especially in Westchester, we're getting a large demographic of people coming from the city. So living in a doorman building where the super fixes everything is a little different. So how would you, when you go through a home inspection with, say, someone that's a first-time buyer, they're moving from the city, they lived in a doorman building, they're having a kid, or they're just starting a family, or they even have a family. How would you like specifically go through the house, and what would you want to tell them and educate them on?
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, we think that one of the best things we do as a home inspection company is get to know the people during the inspection. And that's difficult because we only have maybe 2 or 3 hours to get to know somebody. But it's important to know, are these people handy? Do they know what they're doing? Are they ready for home ownership? Because we'll speak to them in a certain way and we'll be able to describe certain things in a house that way. We don't want them to clam up and not ask questions if they've never picked up a wrench before. We want to know, have you ever done work on a house before? And if they're coming from New York City and they've always relied on somebody to come help them with every little problem, we're going to tailor the inspection to them the way they need it. We want them to know everything about the house, but we want them to let them know that nothing's too overwhelming, that there's always someone that they can call and someone they could always rely on for help while they're living in that home.
So you find people frequently ask you for resources as well.
Absolutely, and we're proud to pass out names with people that have built a good relationship with us over the years, good relationship with realtors that we trust, and obviously in the neighborhoods we're working, we want them to have a positive relationship with the people living there.
Yeah, so really it's like some people almost, it's from my end, from the real estate end, it can be very overwhelming.
Yeah.
I can personally say that I'm a person that can't put a wrench, like when we put things together in a house, I'm literally the helper for my wife. You know? She's more handy, so I know being in that scenario myself, I could see it through the eyes of like our clients,
Definitely.
So it's like, but it's like not to discourage them into saying that you have to maintain the roof, the boiler, there's the lawn, there's water, possible water damage, and there's a variety of other things, but being able to work with the right people, you're saying, being able to have the right resources, whether you're handy or not handy, you can still own a home, and it's okay. And
yeah, and during the inspection, we let them know that, listen, this is going to be a very detailed inspection, but we're not going to find every problem this house has to offer, and you may start to find things over the course of living here for the first year, going through a bad winter storm, to find out that, all right, we have a problem with something, when the house is put to that test, just something that we couldn't find during a nice sunny spring day. But just to let them know that it's normal. I mean, in this area, it's not uncommon to have a house that's 100 years old, and it's going to have its flaws and it's going to have its defects. But like a car, it needs to be maintained. You need to learn about it and know what sounds make sense, what sounds right. If you have a flat tire, you couldn't prepare for that. So it's the same thing with a house. You have to just, be prepared for problems if you can be, but know that they're fixable.
So we're saying, the major components, right? Because I'm sure some people are going to watch this and take some notes. So we check the roof.
Yeah. Major components I would say would be, obviously structure. The roofing systems, I say roofing systems because it's, the age of the shingles and the type of shingles you have.
What do you do for the roof? Do people go up on ladders? Do you actually physically go inspect them? Do you go with binoculars? Like,
it depends on the roof.
What's the best practice?
Yeah, it does depend on the roof. I mean, it's great to get on the roof. If you have the ability to do so, great, except in many cases you just can't, whether it be a wet day, the roof is too high, or it's too steep. So no home inspector is obligated to get onto the roof. But if we can't, we like to view them from the ground with binoculars, we like to view them from windows, or get up on a ladder and at least view it from the eave, the best you can. So it's a perfect example of, home inspection's not perfect. It's a general, overall view of the house. And if you start finding problems, that's when we would call in the specific professional to get more information, such as a roofer. If we can't see certain areas of the roof and I don't feel confident, I would tell them it's time to get a roofer in to take a closer look.
So there's a roof and there's the boiler. So when you're going through the boiler.
Yeah. There's the boiler system and major mechanicals in the basement. There are the plumbing systems and components, electrical. We have the interior finishes that obviously get inspected, appliances, the outside siding and walkways, decks, driveways, retaining walls. There are a lot of components on the outside of the house that you might not pick up on when you're first visiting the home, except we want to make sure that everything is in good order out there and that you don't have any problems just waiting, like large trees growing over the house that are just waiting to come down, or a deck that wasn't properly built or maintained. All of these things.
Those could be big safety hazards.
Absolutely, and during an inspection, it's a step-by-step process to work our way around the house and through the house, looking at these things, documenting them in the report, and testing them the best we can.
So would you say, where would you spend the most time during a home inspection?
You know, the outside of the inspection, well, we start around the perimeter and focus on the roof and the exterior components that I just mentioned, and then when we do the basement, that's the first probably hour of the inspection, maybe hour and a half, and it's the most intense part of the inspection. Usually the clients are white in the face at the end of the information we provide them, but that's where the heart and soul of the house is. That's where the major components that have to be taken care of are. And then after that, you're back up to that beautiful new kitchen and the bathrooms, and you start running and testing everything. So I would say that the most time we spend would be probably on the outside, and then again, the last big section would be the basement.
So it's a nice little like inverse relationship, right? When I go to the house with the people,
Yeah.
we're looking at kitchens, baths, we discuss doing possible renovations, what can we switch, what can we look at?
Yeah.
You know, you kind of go down the basement, you kind of look at, okay, this is the icky basement. You kind of walk around the yard, but you're looking when you're looking to buy a house, right? Most people are looking at, is there enough space for my kids to play, or
Right.
can my dog be out here, or can I have the
Definitely.
barbecues I want? So it's really interesting for people to note that it's almost inverse. You know,
and you know what? There's a lot of things I like working with you, for example, working with a lot of realtors that we work with. They're fantastic at explaining that, you know, this house is great for you. It's got all of the things you're looking for, like you just mentioned, but it's also an older home. And, you know, I'm not an inspector, but it looks like that boiler might be a little older. Let's remember to speak to the inspector about it, to keep the buyer's feet on the ground, because a lot of the times, you know, some realtors will tell them this house is perfect. It's perfect for you. And that makes them think that there's not a single problem with that house. And then we come up to the home inspection and we start pointing out flaws, which are very common flaws that all homes have. And you see the people starting to get nervous because they went into it thinking that the house was going to be perfect and that they could just move in without any kind of thought process of what could go wrong behind it. So to have a realtor like you that warns them that this house isn't going to be perfect, it may be perfect for you, and it's what you're looking for, but let's find out what kind of imperfections it has that might need to be taken care of over the next few years, or maybe even before making a decision on the house, final decision.
It 100% is, and that brings us to our next point, which really is, you know, what happens when unforeseen issues come up? Remember that cop we worked with?
Absolutely, yeah. It happens all the time. We don't like to deliver really negative news, but sometimes it just comes down to maybe safety hazards that have to be fixed, or financially. If we do a house and we find out.
We work with so Justin and I years ago had worked with a police officer from New York City, and he was buying a house up in northern Westchester. He felt the house was perfect for him and his family, and what was interesting was his wife was pregnant. They're having their first kid.
Right.
But I knew, like, financially, he had shared some information with me where, like, if a major component went in the house with a new family, it was too much.
Yeah, exactly.
And the owner, I remember this because the owner was, remember that? The guy that was president?
Yeah.
He would follow us around. He kept selling us the house, selling us the house. In most cases, it's enough to push someone out, but my client really liked the guy, and our client, it made him like the house more.
Yeah.
So he had some sort of emotional attachment to the house and the guy, and you know, when we went there, that was a roof. I remember that because you climbed up on the roof. And what'd you find that time?
The roof was definitely shot. It was at the end of its life. It needed to go. I don't remember if we found leaks that day.
Powder it was, right? It was like
was
literally
breaking
crumbling.
down, yeah. It was breaking down completely. And, you know, one of the things, like I mentioned, is to try to get to know these people over the course of the inspection, to find out that his wife is pregnant, they have a little one, and that this is at the top of their budget. And then I had to tell them that, listen, the roof is shot, it really needs to be replaced. You know, I'm telling them because I have concern for them. I'm not telling them because, you know, it's just my job. This is an important thing to take a look at. Let's start to get some estimates. And sometimes financially, it just doesn't work out. And, you know, you feel bad, except you have to realize you're telling them that for a reason. It's to protect them in the long run.
You have to, you know. It really comes down to this. No one wants to get that call.
Yeah.
6 months, a year from now.
Oh, no, yeah.
How come you never told me this?
Absolutely, yeah. You try your best to inform them of everything. And although everything's not going to get fixed, and all homes have their flaws, and, you know, half the things that we find during the inspection will never get fixed, but you need to let them know about everything because they need to make their own decisions, and they have to be informed, plain and simple.
You know, and the reality is this. Look, we've spent time today talking about the home inspection, the roof, and all these things. Like here in Westchester County, the majority of the homes are older homes.
Yeah.
So it's like buying an older car. There are going to be flaws with it.
Totally.
No home's going to be perfect. Ever so often we'll go to a house where the guy and the family has done every bit of maintenance.
Yeah.
You know, but deferred maintenance, wouldn't you agree, is the biggest killer, you know, when
Absolutely.
people don't service the boilers, they don't clean the gutters, and they don't clean the gutters,
Yeah.
then that ends up to water damage because you have all the water seeping
Yeah,
around the
little
property.
problems
And-
become big problems if you just
Yeah.
if you let it go a little bit too long. You know, just like with anything, like you said, a car, same thing. You don't get the oil changed, it's going to affect the car negatively in the long run. So you have to watch out for things like that.
Yeah, and even with unforeseen issues, you know,
Mm-hmm.
a home inspection ideally is meant to give someone a real roadmap for what the house is today.
Yeah.
And a destination in the future, like what needs to be done, you know?
Yeah.
So even like, for an example, like you'll give me a home inspection report,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think this is important people know.
Yeah.
Some people think the report is what the report is, and other people think that everything should be fixed.
Yeah,
you
right.
know, and it depending on the market, depending on the specific situation, there's like a happy median. You know, I know you tell people all the time, you don't. It's not your estimate to give people. You know, we sit down and I tell all my clients at the end of our inspections, Justin, can you, before you give them the report, please tell them the major things that they need to know.
Yeah.
Right away.
Yeah, we like to put a summary together so that we can inform them of the major things that we find during the inspection, major problems, I should say. But we can't get involved with negotiating. You know, we have to provide that information, and then we have to let you, who's the professional negotiator, take over. I mean, you are the ones who know their financial situation, who understands, you know, what they're looking for, understands if they got a good deal on the house or if they're, you know, getting a steal. And whether or not there's any room for negotiating. But that's something that we're just not privy to, so it's something we can't get involved in. We're there to provide the report, the details of the house, and really take a step back and allow you guys to take over, and of course the real estate attorney to get involved as well to help guide them the rest of the way.
Yeah, you know, and it's interesting you say that about negotiating, you know, and to touch upon that, it's really like a fine art in the sense that you don't know what a specific person's situation is, right? And you could give so many different examples. Why are they moving? How long do they need to be in a place by? Why is that important to them? Financially, can they afford the house? Are there multiple offers for the house?
Right.
Have they looked at 100 houses and this is the only house for them? So those things all factor into the negotiation. Why is the seller moving?
Yeah.
How much do they want to move? What are they willing to fix? You know, there's a difference between fully functional mechanicals in a house and like capital improvements. You know?
Absolutely.
So like the boiler not working and not giving heat is part of something that should be fully functional.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, could you talk about from like an inspection and the difference between something that's like a functional component in the house versus things people ask and like look for as like a capital improvement?
Yeah, I mean, every once in a while we get an inspection where, you know, we'll be finding small things like an outlet that's broken or lights that aren't working or a broken window or something that can be fixed but doesn't really affect the value of the home or even whether or not, in my eyes, whether they should move forward with the house. But you'll see the people starting to ask me, well, you know, we should have them fix that or should we have them fix that? And in my eyes, I always feel like the big issues are something major that's broken and not operational. It's like boiler that doesn't provide heat to the house, or like a roof that's leaking. You know, you need a dry home. Safety hazards are always a very big one for me as well. You know, it doesn't matter how beautiful the house is if it's a fire hazard or if it has any kind of you know, carbon monoxide issues or safety violations. Like that's a big hazard. That's a big issue. And then, of course, like structural, the major components that start to fail. Like if we have termite infestation or termite damage, or if we have problems with the foundation, you know, those are big problems where you have to throw a lot of money at it sometimes to fix. That's where they have a little bit more leverage to either ask for something to be done or to just make the decision to walk away. And, you know, again, when we do the summary at the end, I feel like those are the things we like to inform people of, is safety, things that aren't functioning, and then the major concerns.
So the fact that you notate that windows are older and not energy efficient doesn't necessarily mean, in most cases, that the seller should replace all the windows.
Absolutely. We're trying to inform, but not everything we're saying is meant to be a negotiation point for them. You know, and then we try to state that during the inspection, that, you know, the purpose of this is to inform and not for you to just to negotiate. Because sometimes people come in thinking that that's the purpose of the inspection. And it's one of the reasons why we like to speak with our clients before we show up to the inspection. We like to talk to them on the phone and get a sense of, you know, where they're at with the process and what, you know, what kind of expectations they have for the inspection.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing about it. It's
Yeah.
like people that go into it, I would say the way that I advise my clients is like, look, we're going to go to the house today. I want you to ask as many questions as possible. And if you're going to notate down what to do with an inspector, this would be it. Go there, make the phone call, explain to the inspector prior to going there what your knowledge of homes is, what you're looking for, what you think the inspection is, so at least the inspector has an idea to know what that is.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you, did you?
No, go ahead.
A lot of the times, like you just said, we want to know that information. We want to see where they're coming from. I know there are a lot of inspectors out there that don't really want to get involved with the clients. They want to go focus on the house, provide a report, and call it quits. But we feel like that's not providing the service that you could really offer somebody. We want them to be able to ask us questions, and we want them to know that once they use us for an inspection, they can call us 3 years from then and ask us questions. It's important to know that they can rely on us and not that we're just another step in the process of buying a house and looking to get a report, and that report will then make the decision. We want them to be able to trust us personally and then refer to the report.
So the good thing is, it's if you're taking some bullet points, it's contact your inspector ahead of time, have a conversation with them, let them know. The next thing is that I encourage people is walk around, listen, and ask questions.
Yep.
A lot of times, mistake I see is that, okay, now we're in the house, the homeowner's not there, might not be on a time limit, and people are just walking around and they're just not paying attention. And, I constantly remind them, go follow at least one of them, if it's a couple or if it's a single person or their partners, however it is. One person I feel should be present with you at all time, taking their own notes.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's nice for them to take their time and visualize themselves at the house, except it is important to be with us because, the reports could be scary. Our job is to provide a report of deficiencies, and 30 pages of deficiencies can make almost any house look bad sometimes. So it's nice for them to be there and say, this is what we're looking at. This is why we're looking at it. I'm taking a picture. I'm documenting it. Now you'll remember seeing it in the report, and you'll remember the discussion we had about it. And you'll know, even though it's listed as a safety hazard or as a repair, that it's not the end of the world. You're getting your questions answered now, and you don't have to call me after you get the report to discuss why.
So you should take their own notes then, too.
I feel like it's important to bring notes, any questions that might come up, and then have something, a pen and pad, to bring with us during the inspection, because often not everything can be figured out during the inspection. Sometimes we run into a question mark, and then we have to find out, okay, was this taken care of? Is there a buried oil tank? Or, was there ever a buried oil tank? The lights, we can't get the lights on the driveway working. Is it on a timer that we can't find? Let's ask the homeowner. There's a lot of questions that come up during the inspection. They're not all answers. So it's good to come with a
list
pen
of
and pad.
questions, to come with your own. So
absolutely.
Provide knowledge, be present with the home inspector, come up with a list of your own questions, and take notes.
Absolutely.
So once that's done, now, generally speaking, especially in a competitive market, there has to sometimes be a quick turnaround time on the reports.
Definitely.
So how do you feel about that? What do you think a good turnaround time is? Not specifically to your company, but in general.
I would say 2 days is a good time, and I don't even know the state law. I think the law is 4 business days or 5 days. The reason I don't know it is because we do provide it in 1 day. The last few years have been very busy, and we know that people are relying on this report. They're relying on our information to make a very fast decision. So we like to send an email report to them. The reason we email it is so that they could share it with their realtor. They could forward it to their real estate attorney. They could share it with contractors if we find an issue that a contractor needs to take a look at, say they couldn't come to the house and they want to get an idea of how much something might cost. It's important to be able to forward that to other professionals that they could rely on. We're not allowed to share with anyone.
Report? Like a good report, but what should it have?
Well, our reports are narrative form. We feel like a checklist report or a handwritten report probably doesn't provide the same detail that a narrative form computer-generated report can provide, something that we do. And then I feel like digital pictures is something that has to be added to the report because there's a lot of terminology, and it's important to see what the problem was, but it's also important to see the problem at the time of the inspection. Taking a picture of a problem in a rainstorm is different than taking a picture during a beautiful day. And it's important for them to see how that picture turned out during that situation.
I always tell people that your inspection is a roadmap, at least for the first few years in the house. So, they should definitely review it once or twice a year. They can reach back out to you. And, as we kind of wrap this up, I want you're an expert home inspector. If people are out there, they're interviewing people, what really should people what types of questions should they ask? What should they look for?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. The truth is you want to make sure that they're licensed and insured. In New York and Connecticut State, you have to have insurance to be a licensed inspector. I would make sure that they have their DEC certification to inspect for wood-destroying insects such as termites, so that they can get a termite certificate. You want to make sure that they are a full-time inspector. I think that's important because not only do you want them to have experience, and experience is very important, but you want to make sure that you can call them and get them, and that they're not off doing another full-time job. You want to make sure that you could reach them. For us, we had to hire full-time staff to answer phones because we spent so much time on home inspections, but we wanted people to be able to reach someone and let them know that a question is being taken down and that we'll receive the question. It just makes them feel better than leaving a message. So I feel like experience is important. What type of report they'll get, like I said, narrative form or a checklist, handwritten. And then, of course, when will they get the report is always important.
So these are all questions they should ask. And obviously,
I feel
like with anything today, you want to look up online reviews.
Yeah,
Google, Angie's List.
Absolutely. I mean, if you can get a few referrals from the inspector, call a few people that they've worked with. But then now everyone should have some positive reviews online that could be searched. Hopefully they're positive.
Yeah, so Justin, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
We're going to make a list and a sample report.
Mm-hmm.
You could TrueView inspections.
Yeah, TrueView home inspections. If you'd like to visit the, TrueView home inspections, if you'd like to visit the website, it's trueviewhomes.com. We have sample reports there and a lot of information about home inspections in general, as well as our company.
Yeah, so the episode will be posted on my website.
Great.
And we'll put some bullets from this as well. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And we'll see you on the next episode. And in the meantime, you can check out our website at gatewayrealtyteam.com, or you can check the screen and like us on Facebook for more information that you should not be without. I'm your host, Chirag Shah. Thank you for joining us.